So we have the honor and privilege of having Drew join us today. Okay, and once we have the technology going, we actually have a mic this time, so we don't have to do Drew, I hope you're getting some of this.
Bonjour, mes amis.
Yep. So this experience, the fact that Drew is part of this UNF family, really brings the importance. That would help.
There he is. Now we got it.
Drew, can you hear us?
Oui, monsieur. Bonjour. Comment ça va?
All right. I like this. This is, we're going to do the entire session today in French. Does that work?
I just used all of my French.
Okay, good. This is going to be the shortest.
Juste un peu. Juste un peu. What you can learn from the back of cereal boxes in Canada. So every Canadian has certain words they know in French, regardless of whether they speak it or not, because all of our cereal boxes are in both language. So I know gratuit means free. So yeah, I just used all of it. I only have enough French to make my girlfriend think that I'm hot for a second. And that was it. But once I managed to do that, I just now refuse to speak it as if somehow some kind of trauma keeps me from doing it. I'm hoping she doesn't figure out that I tricked her.
I love it. I love it. Well, Drew, we tried to have this big reveal, this big surprise. I'm not that tricky to pull this off because I said, hypothetically, what would you ask Drew if you're going to have coffee with Drew here on campus? So our students have gone through, this is our leadership practicum group, the top 52 students here at UNF, just absolutely amazing. And they are here to meet you, learn from you. And I think one of the students did say that I ran out of things to do for class. So thank God that we have another guest speaker. So there's a lot of self-awareness going on right now. So
let me defend him, my friends, that we do this once a year. So he isn't just giving you filler. We try to make this happen once a year. I wish I could come down and see you again live, my friend. Have another cigar. I cannot wait. As I said, my new girlfriend loves Florida, loves it. So now I have to come more often. And I can't wait to get down and see all of you again. I have my Osprey hat. I forgot. You'll have to reteach me how to swoop. I put on some weight over the pandemic, so I'm afraid that swooping will result in crashing. But we'll do our best.
Excellent. And I share with our wonderful students the connection we made years ago where you were the first keynote speaker for leadership awards. We actually have our third one tomorrow.
Wow.
In the fact that even though your career has just skyrocketed, you have not forgotten us here in Jacksonville, and you've always stayed connected. And it's really truly become a win-win. And the fact that your curriculum is now being used in every one of our leadership practicum courses. So you're part of not only in terms of the connection, okay, but your resources and tools are impacting our students on a really profound level. So we're just so glad we made that connection years ago. And yes, we have a few cigars waiting for you when you come down. So
I love it. I love it. Well, what can I do to make your lives better today?
Actually, well, we have a whole bunch of questions. We have a bunch of questions for you, so you don't need to. They've gone through the day one online full course, and they've really enjoyed that. They've seen the TED Talk, and I think we just have questions. So this isn't the most tech savvy room. I think this still is Windows like 95 running on this computer. So we might have students just come up and introduce themselves and ask questions, and we'll just make it an informal, as if we're sitting here having coffee or a beverage of choice. Some students actually do. They have the flask and think, yeah, there you go. Oh, look at that. Look at the branding for Canada. I love it. All right. So who's up? Who would like to ask the very first question to Drew? And come on up and don't be shy.
Okay. I'm leaning into the Canadian thing today. We got Moose. I got a Letterkenny shirt on under this.
I love it. I love it. All right. So we have one student coming to the podium. and introduce yourself. Just all
Hi.
yours.
My name is Keontae. I'm a sociology major and minor in leadership. One question that I did have was like, what was like your motivation, like your drive behind making the day one leadership thing online too? Did you do it in person?
So I didn't catch the last sentence, I'm afraid.
I said, did you do it in person? Like, did you have like a big conference?
Oh, for the online program?
Yeah. Or was it
No,
just like online?
no, that was actually filmed. You know what? I have to be honest. That was a result of good friends of mine pushing me to do more than I was comfortable with. I was really busy when that kind of went down, that particular program. And my friends were just like, we should go online. We should go online. When, like you've seen the book, what essentially had happened is I had 60 minutes to speak. Anytime someone invited me to speak, it's the same length. But over 10 years, you just start building more and more stuff you want to share. And so every time I gave a speech, I kept thinking about all the stuff I wasn't getting to share. And of course, the audience doesn't know that. So it's not like they feel like they're getting shortchanged, but I know. And friends of mine were like, why don't we make an interactive online component? You should do that. And I just thought, I'm not ready for it. It's another big step. It's a big investment financially. And they just wouldn't let it go. And so I ended up flying down to Vegas and shooting that over the course of 3 days. And it was 3 12-hour days in a studio with a green screen. And so the motivation for it was my friends telling me that you should really spread out a little bit and try it. And so for me, I think leadership is a big part of your being willing to tell your friends not to sell themselves short. I filmed it, I invested in it, and now it, things like entire universities are using it as part of their programs. But I think there's so many times in my life that that's happened, that my motivation was honestly to avoid doing something that might fail. This was early in my career, really. And the same thing happened with the TED Talk. I wasn't going to give that speech. I got the call to do the TEDx event, and I called up my best friend and said, I have 6 minutes to speak at this event. And my friend said, you can't introduce yourself in 6 minutes, man. That's not going to work. I said, well, what should I talk about? I'm so nervous. I'm excited. And he said, you got to tell that lollipop story. And I said, man, I can't tell a story about lollipops. It's a TED event. It doesn't have enough gravitas. And there's this long pause. And he's just like, dude, you need to get over yourself. He's like, your whole thing is that we take something that shouldn't be complicated and we make it into something big and complex. And you've just been given the opportunity to speak to maybe the biggest audience to which you'll ever speak. And you're not going to tell your best story because it doesn't make you sound smart enough. He said, you got to get over yourself. And if you ever use the word gravitas around me again, I will smack you. But the only reason I did the talk that has resulted in so many of the best experiences of my life, that has set me up, in a job that I love and financially I'm good. It's a story I wasn't going to tell until a friend of mine told me to stop being a dumbass. And so what it really taught me is sometimes leadership is a big part of leadership is surrounding yourself with people who are willing to tell you when you're being a dumbass and give them permission to do it, and then set the ground rules about how we go about doing it. But man, never let your friends sell themselves short in front of you. We'll do it all the time. But the thing is, we will do to ourselves what we'd never allow our friends to do in front of us, right? So I kind of meandered a little bit there because I always look at an answer. I want to try to make it as useful as possible. And the thing that I really learned from doing the online program was I was pushed to do it by people who believed in me more than I did. And one, allow those people into your life. And two, try to be one of those people for people in your life, because your friends will hold themselves back way too often. And the problem is, if you tell them they can't, well, then they'll throw it back in your face when the time is right for you to try something.
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I agree with that because I remember the janitor story in the online course. I really like that story just because of the fact of that it ties you into what made you feel good, and then also how leadership applied to your life. You were surprised that he even remembered your name. Like one of my 5th grade teachers, she still remembered me. She's like, oh my God, Keontae, I haven't seen you in so long. Like, how you doing? And all this stuff. I was like, you remember me? You had 100 students. Like, how do you even remember my name? But
Yeah,
thank you.
no problem. And hey, go back and tell your favorite teachers they were your favorite teachers. Like, you have no idea what it means to them. It's weird though when your teachers are now your peers. Like, they're like, "Do you want to grab a beer?" I'm like, "No, Mr. Driscoll, I do not want to have a beer with you." That would just be way too weird for me. But tell your favorite teachers that they mattered to you. It's been a rough time for all of it.
All right. So before we get to the next question, Drew, I do want to introduce two of our team members that have joined me in this journey and our leadership practicum. Through an event we had on campus, I did my I don't know if it's a lollipop moment or peer pressure or whatever it is. We had Mia O'Brien, who was hosting an event on campus. I don't know if you can see Mia.
Oh, no, I'm in the other
yeah,
corner. I'll come introduce myself to Drew, since I also Twitter stalk him. What's up, Drew? I'm really tiny, just like I am in real life. I'm really tiny on your screen.
So Mia is joining us, co-teaching with me. Mia was Fox,
ABC, NBC.
ABC, NBC Sports, everything with the Jags, you know, you name it. She helped to transition that whole coaching change. That was all Mia. Okay, so she has that much.
I was the one that got Urban Meyer fired.
Yeah,
Yes,
it.
that was me. That was
her
all me.
claim to
That was
fame.
all me.
I think Urban Meyer got Urban Meyer fired.
Yeah, well, you know, when you don't know who Aaron Donald or Joe Mixon is, I mean,
Oh,
yeah,
so
they're-
like,
yeah,
who's
no, well,
number
so
99?
right. Well, here's the problem is, so that's the quote that they use in the Athletic article. But what I tweeted was, I was the one that asked the question the first week. They were playing the Texans. And so they have a bunch of different running backs, all like washed up veterans, right? And so I'm like, all right, so you got Mark Ingram, David Johnson, Rex Burkhead. Like, how do you prepare for a running back room that has so many different guys? And Urban started talking about Joe Mixon, who of course plays on Cincinnati. And I remember we all kind of looked at each other like, what's he doing? And then I think the PR person was like, wrong team. And he was like, oh, my bad. I'm looking ahead. Ha, 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 ha. And we all just kind of were like, ha, ha, ha. So we should have known then. We should have known then, Drew.
Yeah, we laugh, but someone's going to hire him at 7 figures sometime in the next 6 months. So,
Well, and here's the crazy part.
we taught you, Urban.
Well, here's the crazy part. I went on Chicago radio and they brought up the fact that, you know, he wants to teach leadership. So yeah, and he has a book that is part of the Ohio elementary school curriculum. So yeah.
So sometimes we learn best from non-examples. So
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure soon he'll be a senator.
There you go. Yes. Well said. Well said. I like that.
See, this is why we love having you here, Drew.
Well, it's easy to make fun from up here, right?
Yes. And I'm gonna introduce you to Mindy. Mindy, I'm pretty sure you met Mindy when you were down. One of our amazing student athlete golf team. You know.
Yes.
So
Sorry, you're very far away from
know.
like I'm from the back of the room, but yes, I do. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Amazing. This is so cool. I'm so glad we get to do this, Matthew.
I know.
Dr. Olson, sorry.
I still have your video from the question that I asked from, I think 2 or 3 years ago. So
It was a while back. That was the last time I was there. So I can't wait to get back down. I really can't. I feel so cooped up. It is just over 0 degrees here right now, not to feed any more into the Canadian stereotype. That is cold for this time of year. So I'm so jealous of all of you. Because I bet you you said it's raining, but it's warm, I bet. And my understanding is that warm rain is very romantic.
yeah.
So at least that's what every Rachel McAdams movie has taught me.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, Drew. All right. Who's next? Come on up. Don't be shy. I gave them very strict homework to have a question prepped. So hypothetically, if you were to join us.
I was going to say, you deal with very intelligent students. I probably would have seen through that one too.
They're actually sprinting to see who gets to the mic first. So there's a scuffle in the back of the class,
Yeah.
but we're good. Stop camera so it doesn't happen.
hi, Drew. My name is Elle. I'm a health administration major with a minor in leadership. And so my question for you today is, you're basically like the all-star leader in this class, from my understanding, but you are also still a person yourself. So how do you deal with the days that you're not feeling motivated?
Yeah, I think one of the key things is, and I'll be straight with you, it has been a terrible 2 years. Like it's been rough. And so, that's right on point right now. I think one of the key things I try to do, and let me be very clear, I try to do all of this stuff. I try to do all the things in my book. I try to do all the things in the online program. The tools I talk about are the tools I use to try to be better. I want to be very clear. I don't always pull it off. But one of the things I try to do to deal with the days I'm not motivated is plan ahead for them. I think that one of the challenges that I think we sometimes had is when we have a good day, we want to live in the good day. We keep being told to enjoy the moment, right? We should. Like when you're having something good in your life, take a moment, stop, take a breath. But I also think that what happens is when we have a good day, we use them as escapes from the knowledge of all the lousy and unmotivated days that are out there. We're like, today's a good day, so let's not think about all those crappy days. But I think that, and I think I touched on this in some of my work, is that I think it's worth carving out 10 or 15 minutes on a good day to prep for the unmotivated day or the sad day or the pissed off day. You know what I mean? And so one of the things that's so useful for all leaders is accountability. And accountability usually takes the form of other people. Like holding yourself accountable is hard because you have only so much psychic emotional energy. And when you're going through something tough, you rightly put it towards taking care of yourself, right? And that doesn't always leave enough left over to hold, like to make sure you do all the things you want to do. And I think that we judge ourselves for that. Don't. Like when we judge ourselves for being overwhelmed or feeling as if we aren't motivated, we're judging ourselves for being human. And look, there's enough stuff we can judge ourselves for in this world without making it the fact that we're human beings. So for me, it's about enlisting the people in your life who make you better in sort of an accountability deal. So you identify the things that most stand in your way. And on a good day, talk to 1 or 2 or 3 people in your life and say, this is a challenge I face sometimes. On those days, do you mind if blank? So enlisting people in to keep you accountable for things helps you. It gives someone else not just the responsibility, but it allows you to tap into someone else's strength on a tough day when you don't have it yourself. So for instance, an example I use for accountability, I'm bipolar, that's in the online program. And it's pretty easy to spot. And it's relatively well under control over the last 5 to 7 years. I've been really, really lucky that I hit on a treatment plan that works. But there are days where I start to see the manic side hit, and there are days where the depressive side, or months where the depressive side is a problem. One of the features of depression is you tend to start to cut off contact from other people, even the people you adore. And so what I told my friends is, this is what's true about me. Can you keep an eye out for these signs? So if I start to act this way, I might be moving a little bit manic or hypomanic. And if this starts to happen, I might be dealing with the depressive side. If I cancel on you once, cool, everybody cancels, right? Sometimes you just don't want to go out. And the older you get, the more the thought of staying in on Friday is the best thing in the world. And if I cancel twice, that happens. If I cancel a third time, come to my house and bang on the door until I come. And I give them permission to do that. One of the best ways that I handle the days that I'm down, where I'm unmotivated, where I don't feel strong, is I've given my closest friends and colleagues permission to piss me off. I've explained to them how I want to be pissed off. I've explained to them that I might be annoyed, but I've also told them that it will be good for me and to remind me I've given them permission. Same thing if you're writing a book and you don't have your chapter done. You can tell yourself you'll get your chapter done, but tell your 3 best friends to start texting you nonstop and give them permission to do it. What happens then is that you can't get out of it because you've already told them, keep doing it even if I'm mad. So the best thing I can give you, wrap in accountability, whether it's your parents, your bosses, your friends are great at it, and then do it for them as well. There are days where you just don't have the energy to feel good, to feel motivated. Enlist ahead of time people to make sure that they do it for you when you need it. That to me is the best way. And I'll try to keep my answers shorter.
All right, thank you so much.
Nice job, nice job. All right, Drew, before we get to the next face-to-face question, we are joined by Dr. Kane's class.
Okay.
Dr. Kane has been part of our journey from for many years since you started working with us, and Jen uses your text in her class and resources. So this momentum is expanding out to different departments, different programs, different classes. So it's pretty cool. So in the text box, Drew, can you see that question?
I can't actually. I'm on my phone, unfortunately.
Okay, so go ahead,
There's
Jen.
several of them. There's several of them that my students have just come up with. So just, don't feel the need to answer all of them. Maybe, I don't know, Matt, if you just want to pick one or.
Sure. All right, let's see. Let me go through them. That is the world's longest Zoom text. A string. Yeah, I love it. Let's see. How about the last one? I like the last one. And I can send them all to Drew afterwards as well, Jen, so they can all be answered. But the last one, Drew says, what recommendations do you have for growing young leaders to really focus on growing every day?
I think that the goal is, a lot of this is feedback in the day one concept, is actually have a clear set of behaviors each day and start with one. Right. And I start with the questions because that drives things so much for me. But for example, we've used the questions with really young kids, like 5 or 6 year olds. Like, what did you do today to make someone smile? My friend asked her 5-year-old that at the end, 6-year-old now, I guess, when they started going to school. She started coming home and she'd always say, this is a question that you answer every day in this house. And they share it over dinner. And so the questions are powerful. And if you want to have people leading every day, you have to have daily goals. Like, it's just that simple, is that you have to have daily goals and start with one that you answer. And there's a lot of different arguments over how many days, but let's just say 40. For 40 days, you got to make sure you do that one thing over and over again. And at that point, psychologically, it's usually embedded in such a way that when you don't do it, even if you don't know why, you feel uncomfortable. Anybody who started going to the gym seriously knows that once you've been going for a couple months, on days where you don't, there is this weird feeling that your day is incomplete. The number one way of starting to drive daily leadership behavior is to be specific. The vaguer a goal is, the less likely it will be realized. So, I want to act like a leader today is a wildly vague goal. But today, you have to go out and recognize someone else's leadership. That one thing, that is a very clear, very specific goal. What kills a lot of value-driven behavior, what kills a lot of leadership hopes, is a lack of specificity and then a lack of consistency. The number one way to get people engaging in daily leadership behaviors is to pick one and then have accountability to make sure you do that one thing for 40 days straight. And then you can start thinking, okay, is there another question? Is there another task? But when people are first starting, it's really important to remove all the vagueness as possible. Pick one thing, do it consistently, make sure that there's someone who they're accountable to. That my little 6-year-old, Isla, it's not my little 6-year-old, sorry, but she's sort of my unofficial niece. Every day she knows that question's going to get asked. And it started when she was 6. So now they kind of know that that's an expectation. Now she doesn't have to be asked. She comes home, hops up to the table and says, here's what I did today, mommy. But so be specific. Don't be vague. Pick one thing, make sure that they're accountable for it. If you're talking about a young person, make sure that either yourself or a partner is there for accountability. You'll hear me say that again and again and again, but the research shows people are way more likely to let themselves down than they are to let someone they care about down. There's so much more pressure to live up to. We are so much more likely to act in a way that is a little bit harder in order to not let someone we care about down than we are to push a little harder just to not let ourselves down. We'll bail on ourselves before we'll bail on the people we love. So let's enlist the people we love to make sure that we take care of ourselves, if that makes any sense.
Awesome.
How are you, sir?
Not bad, man. That's a sweet shirt. I like that.
Thank you. So my question is, one of the most important parts of leadership is building a diverse and varied kind of group of people and different ideas. So who is another leader you would actually reference us to? if you have one in mind.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. So there are books on leadership and management and interpersonal relations that I like and that I'm happy to recommend. For instance, I really like Daniel Pink's stuff, which isn't just leadership, sometimes it's management, but he wrote, no, he didn't write Blink, that's Malcolm Gladwell, A Whole New Mind, and one on motivation that's just really interesting about what drives and motivates people. I absolutely love Good to Great and Built to Last, Dan Collins books, because they really get at the idea of what's foundational in leadership. But you asked, is there a leader? So for what it's worth, I honestly believe that all of your biggest leadership inspirations, and if we want to use the strong word heroes, I think they should all be people you know. Because I think what makes someone an admirable leader is how and why they make decisions. And when you know someone, you get to see how and why they make decisions every day. You see the motivations behind their decisions, the factors and the criteria they use, and how they execute on their values. Famous leaders, what we see is either the spin or the historical revision or whatever you want to call it, right? We're seeing the PR version of their accomplishments and their decisions. And whether you agree with them or not, what you're seeing is somebody's perspective on how they make decisions, whether it's theirs or somebody else spinning theirs. So what I believe that is that when you look up to a leader and you have no idea how they actually make decisions, I don't think that's as admirable. And I think it's a little bit dangerous, because what you're doing is reacting to exactly how something is described to you instead of something that you see. And so for me, would I point you to other leaders? Sure. The problem is you probably don't know them. There's a guy I know named Blake Fleischacker, who is one of my leadership heroes who you've never heard of. But Blake is the person who actually behaves like he gives speeches as well. He behaves off stage exactly the way he suggests you behave on stage. And that is really hard to pull off. I have a woman I know named Danielle. The reason I look up to Danielle is that one day we were walking to grab a coffee before she headed to class. She was doing a PhD program. And she had a cupcake with a candle in it as we're walking down the street. And I'm like, what's that for? And she's like, oh, it's just for somebody I know. It was the homeless man who sat near the subway entrance she used every day. It was his birthday. Whoa, sorry, everybody. She knew it was his birthday. She brought him a cupcake. She saw a homeless man every day. She knew his name. She brought him a cupcake. That's who I look up to. So I can't give you a name necessarily, but what I will do is get thinking in your mind about who makes decisions in a way that impresses you and that you want to look up to. Ways that make you be like, man, I wish I could do that, or I hope I can be like that. Those are the leaders to look up to. I'm not saying if you want to be inspired by somebody famous, go for it, right? Just always be aware that fame is a production, all right? Fame is, we've all universally decided that this person is important for whatever reason. That person not only wants to usually, but feels like they have an obligation to make sure that they live up to that, which means everybody starts faking. And so for me, you want to look up to a leader, don't look at how high profile they are. Don't look at how much money they make. Look around you and say, who in my life makes decisions in a way that I would like to emulate? Those should be your leadership heroes. And then we should tell them that. But yeah, I get asked that question a lot, and I hope no one sees it as a cop-out. But I've just been let down so many times by people that you look up to. And then as time goes on, you start to realize, and look, everybody's flawed. And becoming famous means that all of a sudden, like everything that was wrong with you before, you can't let anyone know about, right? Because you need to live up to your new construction of who you are. Every time you walk into a room, you have to deal with the fact that people already have preconceived notions about you, which means famous people are usually not all that authentic. You want to know the best leaders in the world? Look around you at the people who make you feel safer and who make you feel like you can do more. And for what it's worth, tell them that. But in terms of books, read everything Daniel Pink or Patrick Lencioni writes about leadership and management. Patrick Lencioni, Daniel Pink, I absolutely love them. Seth Godin is amazing too. These aren't so much famous leaders as they are people who comment on the way the world is and change the way you think of it, which in my definition is leadership.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure, man.
Excellent. All right, Drew, we'll get back to one more from the chat box. What is a key trait that you would look for in someone you are hiring?
I just hired 2 people.
I know, perfect timing.
Okay. One, I want them to be aware of how they make decisions. One of the things I like to ask people in job interviews is, what criteria do you use to make decisions? And I talked about that in the program. So one, I look for their ability to articulate what is their decision-making criteria, because what I'm hiring them for is the ability to make good decisions. Like when you hire somebody, it's not because they do great work, okay? Like, you know, that's going to happen. I look for people who are going to make good decisions on questions that I have no idea are coming down the pike. Second thing I do is I have an I to we ratio that I look for in a job interview, which means how many times when they're talking about their previous work experience and accomplishments, do they use the word I versus the word we? And when I start sitting across from somebody and I say, tell me specifically about, you know, this particular experience, when they start saying, okay, our goal when we were doing that, or what we were trying to accomplish, what we did there. Now, they're talking about their accomplishment, but they defaulted to we, they defaulted to our. That is a fundamental setup that means that their mind is set up in a collective, collaborative way where they see themselves as part of a team. Even though they're in their own job interview, they are still referencing the fact they did this with other people. I always listen for that. It's the I-we ratio, I think, is really important. I look for, when I ask them to give me examples of things that they've done or something that they believe in, I look for 3 things. I look for them to tell me what it is that they did. I want them to tell me what they're good at or what they believe. I want them to give me specific proof for in terms of, so instead of saying I work well with people, I want them to say, when I held this role in this particular case, I did this. And the last thing I want them to do is tell me why it matters to me. Because one of the things that I think a lot of people in interviews don't do to demonstrate the fact that they do understand they're a part of something bigger is they talk all about what they believe, and then they give examples of why they're good at it. But then they never say, and here's why this matters to your organization. Like, I want people to not only talk about why they're great, but I want to see a demonstration that they have thought about how their talents will empower the other people around them. And the other thing I look for is I ask them, what is something, now in my case, this is my interview, but I want them to tell me something they disagree with that I've written, that I've said. And my God, people get freaked out in job interviews when I'm like, what is something that I've written, that I've said, that you've seen, that you don't necessarily agree with? And I don't want to hire anybody who can't point out something with which they have some sort of quibble. And so that's a bunch of stuff that I look for, but it's the I-we connection. It is their constant understanding that, well, this interview is about them. They are constantly referencing the teams that they were a part of, and they are constantly presenting their particular skill set as something that is going to become incorporated as part of a community. And by the words that they use and the examples that they use, you can tell if they have that kind of mindset or not. Also, leaders hold each other mutually accountable, and you cannot do that if you will not look someone in the eye and say, I disagree with you on this. The key is to look them in the eye and say, I disagree with you on that, not to stick your nose an inch from their face and scream at them, you're an idiot. That's the difference. So those are some of the things I look for in a leader. A collaborative mindset that they don't even realize they're demonstrating they have or don't have.
Excellent. Students?
I also, by the way, ask on average, how many hours of sleep per night do you think you need? Everybody says 3. I want someone who's like 9. The number one underutilized asset for leaders, resource that leaders have that they don't use, is sleep. 100%. You are a better leader if you sleep more. And I know everyone, you roll your eyes, but there is a book called Why We Sleep. Read it. It is life-changing. The number one asset and resource that leaders throw away that make them worse at their jobs, make them worse at leadership, is they don't sleep enough. You're dumber when you don't sleep enough. You're less clever when you don't sleep enough. I know that's weird. Sleep 7-8 hours a night. Failing to sleep more than 5 hours a night over an extended period of time is worse for you than smoking. I was a little shocked by that.
Hey, I'm Nick. I'm a
Hey, Nick.
philosophy major here.
Sweet.
So in the Day One Leadership program, I noticed we've talked about it here also a common theme of growth. But how do you? I guess my question is, how do you distance yourself from regrets or emotional pains enough to turn those lessons into lessons? Because it can be really hard to isolate what you're supposed to be learning from that experience because you're so tied up about it.
Yeah, what a great question. And I want to be clear with, I don't have a perfect answer because I'm still figuring that out. A couple of things. I think that there's an inherent timeline that we have in our brain about how fast we're supposed to do things and when we're supposed to do them. One of the things I found after I lost my girlfriend was that it's not the emotions that get you, it's you judging yourself for having the emotions. So I'm crying too much, or I'm not crying enough, or I'm laughing with my friends, I'm a terrible person, or I won't go out and see my friends and she wouldn't want me to wallow, right? So it wasn't how I felt that got me. It was always me questioning how I felt. I think one of the keys is if we look for the lesson, it sometimes eludes us, for lack of a better term. One of the things, if I could go back to where I was, where all you are, and tell my young self one thing to become better at, it would be to have comfort with uncertainty. Because I found that for most of my life, I had to figure it out, right? I had to figure out where I was going to go to school. I had to figure out what job I was going to have. I had to figure out what my relationship was. Like, I needed to figure all that out, right? But we don't. Like, what we need to do is identify what we want to do every day in terms of being the person we want to be and being willing to be patient while we heal. One thing I found, my man, is that healing cannot be sped up. Like, we can acknowledge we need to. I don't think healing starts until we acknowledge we have to do it. So you can start that. But I don't know if it's something that can be sped up. It's like someone told me once about their grandmother said, there's no fast way to make tea. There's only a right way. And I think with healing, it's the same thing. And I think that what happens is we put this pressure on ourselves to be like, I should be dealing with this now. I should be moving past it now. We don't. It's uncertainty and patience is so weird. And for what it's worth for all of you, for those of you who maybe have done the traditional student route, which means you go to elementary school. In the States, it's a little different with junior high and high school, but it's like 4-year blocks of your life, right? Let's say in grade 5, you start to realize that, hey, one day I'll be a grown-up and move away from home. And 4 years later, you have to graduate elementary or middle school. Everything you built gets taken away from you. All your relationships, all of who you are in a community, poof, and you go off to high school, right? Where you spend 4 years desperately trying to impress people and get good SAT scores and get extracurriculars. And, the teachers know who you are. 4 years later, all of it's gone, right? You could be president and captain of the football team and valedictorian, but okay, you graduated, boom, off to school you go. Where are you now? University. How long is that? 4 years, give or take, right? So everything all of you have ever lived has had a 4-year finish line. No matter how hard you work, what you build, if you don't get it built in 4 years, everything gets torn down for you, right? That's not what the rest of life is like, but how on earth would you know that? Like, the only existence all of you have ever known is every 4 years, somebody makes you restart. And I think what that does is it makes everything in our lives seem more pressure filled, because once you leave university, I mean, you can maybe do some grad school, I don't know, but once you leave the education system, there's no longer a 4-year finish line for the rest of your life. You can take your time. Relationships will take time. Finding what you're born to do will take time. Recovering from the things that hurt you will take time. For what it's worth, don't look for the lesson in the mistakes that you've made and the things that have hurt you. The lesson will make itself clear. find strength in it. Not a lesson, find strength. And by what I mean is this. I might have said this in the book, if so I apologize if I'm repeating it, but you've lived through everything you've ever faced because you're still here. And what I try to do is use the mistakes I made and the things I can't let go as a reminder, as I'm healing, of how strong I can be. Because whatever it is that you're thinking about when you ask that question, you are standing here in that classroom today talking to me. So however it's weighing on you, it hasn't beaten you. And nothing like it before has beaten you either. So if there's no statistical evidence that you will get beaten by what you're facing, there's no historical precedent for it, it doesn't make a lot of sense to assume anything but you'll deal with this one as well. What I mean by pulling strength from it is it will take time to heal and you can't speed it up, but you can draw on strength from it right away. For instance, January 17th is the day I celebrate New Year's because my girlfriend Anastasia passed away on the 17th of January. New Year's Eve is some arbitrary crap ass night that will never for the rest of your life be anything but a disappointment. However, it's completely made up. Who cares? December 31st, does that mean anything to you? But January 16th, that evening, and January 17th, that day, every day that rolls around, it is another year where I have gotten through it. I'm not over it yet. I haven't let it go. But every year it comes around and I think, you know why I'm celebrating New Year's today? Because today represents in my personal life another year of healing, another year of coming to terms, another year of strength, another year of living with this hurt. And that's something we're celebrating. Even if you wish the hurt was gone, we can't push it away, but we can say, damn, I did that. Every day that I face something tough, I think about that morning and I remind myself, it's all good. You are able to deal with this. For what it's worth, if you can, try to remember that. You can't speed up healing. The fact you recognize you need to means you're there. However, life does not work on a schedule. But for your whole life, every 4 years, you had to rush. It's okay. I was 28 years old before I discovered the thing I was born to do. I was 36 years old before I fell in love for the first time. That's not the plan we're told when we're young. It's okay. Be patient. Healing cannot be sped up, but strength can be drawn right away. I hope that was okay. Thank you, man. I was going to quote Aristotle to sound smart, but the only philosophy I know is from The Good Place.
Go Jags.
Mortals!
There it is.
All right, we have a chat question, Drew. When did you recognize you wanted to be a leader and what made you come to that decision?
Well, no one's ever asked me that before. Wow. One, I didn't realize I wanted to be a leader. I realized I wanted to be the center of attention. And I know that's weird. But when I was a kid, I think I felt inadequate. Like I was a pudgy kid and a little awkward. And I read at recess. You know what I mean? Like I was that guy but I was funny and I could make the class laugh. Like they'd make fun of me because I was pudgy and read it and, and read during recess and whatever. But when I made them laugh, then I belonged for a second. And so I always wanted to be sort of the guy who made people laugh. And then what happened was I was really good at school. And so what it was is everything I did was about pleasing other people and sort of, like I said in the book, impressing people that I hadn't met yet. Or maybe I didn't say that in the program, but my whole life when I was younger was people I hadn't met yet, like university admissions counselors was my whole life, but I hadn't met any of them. And then it's all about grad school admissions counselors. My whole life was about impressing people I hadn't met. The person you're going to marry. I hadn't met that person yet, but all this effort was going into getting a degree and making a bunch of money so that one day someone will be like, oh yeah, okay, swipe right. Although that wasn't a thing at the time. And so I never made the decision to be a leader. What I did was I wanted to follow the list of things you're supposed to do to be successful and for the world to look at you as amazing. And I didn't do that because I wanted to. I did that because I thought it was the only way that I mattered. I thought that my grades were what mattered. I thought that people didn't care about me unless I was high performing and, organizing major events. My self-worth was all about what I accomplished. because I believe that if I did not get straight A's, if I did not be the president of this, and if I did not organize these big events, I had no self-worth. So that's why people liked me. Not, they didn't like Drew, they liked what Drew accomplished. None of this was true. I decided I wanted to be impressive to other people, not a leader. And I think I decided that changed when I mentioned this briefly in the program, but a guy named Jason Abraham died. And when Jason Abraham died at 24 years of age from stomach cancer, and almost 2,000 people showed up at his funeral, and he was a C student, but he was the type of person that when he walked in the room, people felt safer. They felt that things would be kinder. They felt that things would be funnier. They felt that nobody was going to get mocked. And when he died and 2,000 people showed up, and me with my fancy resume and piece of paper with all my accomplishments, looked around a huge concert hall and thought, if this happened to you, not this many people wouldn't care. Made me realize that what made Jason different from me was that I lived my life for people I hadn't met yet, and he lived his life for the people who surrounded him every day. Before he died, they sent his 4 best friends to the hospital with his university degree because he was never going to finish his last semester, but the university senate conferred his degree on him anyway because they wanted him to be a graduate before he died. And they flew his best friends to deliver it to him, and he turned it down. And I'm sorry if this story, I don't think I put it in the book, but he turned it down. And his friend said, well, the school wanted to make sure you got what you came for. And he told them, I didn't go there to get that piece of paper. I went there to get all of you. And I have everything I need from that school. And he turned down his university degree, wouldn't take it. He said, I'll come and get it in May, or I don't want it because I don't want my life to be about that piece of paper. And he didn't come and get it. He died he died in March, and graduation was in May. But when he wouldn't take his university degree, and then that many people showed up to celebrate what this guy had done in his 24 years on earth because of how he made them feel, that's when it happened. That's when I looked around and I said, you were living your life for the piece of paper, and that guy, he lived his life for the guys that brought it. And look at how much that matters. And your piece of paper doesn't compared to this. And that, I think, if I was going to say when it happened, it was when at Jason Abraham's funeral. And I looked around and I said, this man lived every day of his life to matter. And I'm living every day of my life for one day in my life, if that makes any sense. And that changed it all. I was a high achiever because I thought that's what leadership was, but none of those achievements were about me. They were about achieving what I had been taught leadership was. My actual life of leadership started when I looked around at a funeral of a 24-year-old and saw 2,000 people. And I went, that is impact. That matters. And my life doesn't yet. And so, yeah, sorry. I really hope that that wasn't already in the book or in the program. I don't believe I put the story. I mentioned Jason, but I don't think I got into it like that. But it was that young man dying that made me say, this is different. You got to do something different.
Wow. Okay.
It was a good dude.
And every time we've had numerous guest speakers, and Drew, you've been with part of this UNF family for many years now. You're an honorary Osprey, but it's really powerful, and I hope students.
Oh my God, have I used up our time? Oh my God, I'm sorry, guys.
I know it's flown by, but I think I want to end on that note, because I think, before I get choked up, because every time you talk, there's something that you share that, and I do this for a living. Like, I study it, write about it, and every time you add this, like, oh, I didn't mention this in the book, and it's like, it's a punch you in the throat type story that just gets you, but it reminds us all, whether we do this, in front of the podium, at the seats, on campus, in the community, no matter what, you have a profound way of reminding all of us of what's most important. And the idea that the theme of doing it daily, and not just for a grade, not just for a publication that no one reads. I mean, you name it, it's daily, and who's better because of your words and actions. And that's just a perfect way to I think, end this session. Does that work for everyone? And on behalf of Dr. Kane, myself, Mia, Mindy, know that, you know, through that cyber stalking a few years ago, you continue to truly impact this campus. I mean, this is
You're
now.
giving yourself a bad rap, man. I think you sent me 2 tweets. Like, I love that you're like beating up, like you cyber stalked him. Like, everybody, he sent me a DM.
Check mark stalking him, so.
Okay, yeah. So Mia's already sent you 14 messages while
you
you've been
didn't know
talking.
this.
So.
Oh, well, I just want to say this. If anybody like hits me on social media, I've kind of been avoiding it for 5 years, but or at least since, you know, May of 2020, I kind of decided it didn't seem like a super healthy place to hang out. Like a snake pit would be a healthier place to hang out. But don't give yourself such a hard time, my friend. You all, like, here's the lesson. All they did was ask. Like, and it's in the book. Just ask, man, because you asked politely and you were so nice. I loved it, man. So thanks for the kind words. I'm glad it, for what it's worth, everybody, if I could just reinforce this. I did it in the book. I'll say it here. This week has reminded me of this. If you've got a friend in your life that for whatever reason you are not talking to each other right now, go fix it. Especially if you don't even remember why you're pissed. But I always just want to sign off. I say it in the book. It's so important to me. Everybody's got somebody they wish was still in their life. And the only reason they're not is you haven't said I'm sorry or heard I'm sorry. For what it's worth, go fix it. Just do it. Like, I know you wanted to close on the other one, my friend, but just the week that's gone on here with some of the people in my life, I just want to reinforce that to everybody. Just the awesomeness that could be the rest of your life with that person is just not worth whatever you're being pissy about right now. It just isn't. Bring them back. Go fix it. Go fix it now.
Drew, thank you so much. And on behalf of my students and staff and Mr. Moose, and Canada, you still have your Canada Dry too.
Oh yeah, this was all just a fluke, but I'm glad to be home. Thanks so much, my friend. I can't wait down to see you. My visa expires in April, but one day I'll get to come back to the United States, and I can't wait to come down and see you. I have to lose some weight so I fit back on those Florida roller coasters.
Excellent. All right, Drew. Appreciate
Thank you, Drew.
Thank you, sir.
Bortles! I know he's gone.